Stop for a moment and look around. People rush to jobs they hate, to buy things they don't need, trying to fill a void that never goes away. The world is a cruel machine that grinds dreams and spits out frustrations. From the moment we are born, we are condemned to an existence marked by pain, desire, and, in the end, oblivion. Arthur Schopenhauer, one of the most pessimistic philosophers in history, saw this reality without filters. For him, life is not a gift, but a burden. Suffering is the substance of existence, and pleasure, when it exists, is only the temporary absence of pain. In his words, life swings like a pendulum between suffering and boredom. Everything we pursue, love, money, recognition, are nothing but futile attempts to escape the void. If we get what we want, we fall into boredom. If we don't, we plunge into frustration. And worst of all, in the end, none of it matters, because death awaits us as the great equalizer, indifferent to our suffering or achievements. But this thought is not merely abstract philosophy. It proves itself every day in real life. Look at human history. Endless wars, remorseless diseases, people who spend their whole lives fighting for scraps. Suffering is at the core of everything, and ignoring it is merely self-deception. In this video, we will explore Schopenhauer's brutal vision and understand why human existence is, above all, a great cycle of frustration. We'll see how desire imprisons us, how nature is indifferent to our suffering, and how modern science confirms that the human mind is biologically programmed for unhappiness. Ready to face the truth without masks? Imagine a dog chasing its own tail. It spins, struggles, almost catches it, but never does. If it ever bites the tip, it feels a momentary relief, but soon the pain returns and the cycle begins again. Now replace the dog with any human being and the tail with what we call happiness. This is the mechanism of life, an endless race after something that in the end never satisfies us. Schopenhauer understood this better than anyone. For him, life is governed by a cruel principle. Desire is the root of suffering. Everything we want, everything we pursue is born from a lack, from an absence, and that absence torments us. We want money because we don't have enough. We want love because we feel lonely. We want recognition because we fear being insignificant. Desire moves us, but also tortures us. Wanting in itself is essentially suffering. Now suppose that by a stroke of luck or extreme effort, you obtain what you desire. You finally win the beloved person, buy that dream car, gain fame or money. Then what happens? The pleasure we feel upon achieving a goal is brief, almost ephemeral. The initial excitement quickly disappears, and a new void takes its place. Soon, you need something else to fill that existential hole. If before you wanted a car, now you want a house. If before you wanted love, now you want to be idolized. And so the cycle continues. Schopenhauer described this trap as a kind of psychological prison. Man lives between two equally miserable states: the suffering of lack, when we desire something and don't get it, and the boredom of attainment, when we get it but soon realize it didn't complete us. Life, therefore, swings between pain and emptiness. There is no middle ground. Just look around the world to confirm this truth. How many times have we heard of celebrities who had everything, money, fame, beauty, and still sank into depression? Robin Williams, one of the greatest comedians of all time, who made millions of people laugh, took his own life. Anthony Bourdain, who traveled the world sampling culinary pleasures, also did. They had what most people dream of, and yet did not find peace. The philosopher would not be surprised. According to Schopenhauer, extreme wealth and fame are not shortcuts to happiness, but traps for despair. When there is nothing left to desire, only the void remains. Wealth is like seawater. The more you drink, the thirstier you become. If this vision already seemed bleak, modern science only reinforces it. Our brain is programmed to never be satisfied. The dopamine system responsible for pleasure works cruelly. It releases pleasure before achievement, but once we get what we want, the excitement rapidly vanishes. The result is an eternal restart. That is why so many people get addicted to gambling, drugs, or social media. The illusion that the next reward will be different keeps us trapped like rats in an endless experiment. So, if life is a frustration machine, how do we deal with it? Schopenhauer's answer is as brutal as it is logical. The only way out is to reduce desire to the smallest possible level. The less you want, the less you suffer. But is that even possible? In the next chapter, we will explore the cruelty of nature itself and understand why the world seems designed for suffering. If there is one thing humanity refuses to accept, it is that the universe simply does not care. We like to believe that life has a purpose, that there is cosmic justice, that suffering leads to some reward. But the naked truth is that existence follows its own rules, and those rules were not made for our benefit. Schopenhauer saw this with brutal clarity. The world is a blind mechanism of pain and survival. Nature does not care about our happiness, our pain, or our dreams. If it wants anything, and that's already a stretch, it only wants the continuation of life. And life, as he said, is an endless chain of suffering. Nature is always truthful and never moral. It is indifferent. From childhood, we are taught to admire nature, the blue sky, green fields, majestic mountains, but that naive view ignores the brutal reality of existence. The forest may look beautiful, but inside it predators tear apart prey. Disease consumes bodies, and newborns are eaten before they even learn to walk. Schopenhauer saw nature as a spectacle of horror, where every being struggles to exist at the expense of another. For him, life is an unforgiving survival game, and all that we call beauty is just varnish over the world's fundamental rot. If we want to measure the happiness of any creature, we should not ask about the pleasure it enjoys, but the pain it suffers. Pleasure in the end is only the temporary absence of pain, and when we look closely, we see that pain is the true substance of the world. If suffering were rare, a tragic exception, perhaps there would be hope. But it is the rule. All living beings at some point are crushed by the burden of existence. Think about what it means to be human. From birth, we are fragile and dependent, subject to hunger, cold, and fear. We grow up conditioned to fight for status, money, acceptance, an endless search with no lasting reward. We age. We watch our bodies fail, our memories fade, our loved ones disappear, and in the end we die, often slowly, alone, and painfully. No creature escapes this fate. Nature brings us forth to exist and then destroys us without mercy. If nature were just or benevolent, what would explain the existence of terrible diseases? Why are babies born only to die within days? Why do some people spend their lives trapped in paralyzed bodies in constant pain? The story of someone like Stephen Hawking, for example, is often told as a triumph of the human spirit. But let us see it without illusions. A brilliant man condemned to watch his body decay slowly while his mind stayed intact. If the universe had any compassion, such a thing should not happen. And we need not look only at humans. The animal kingdom is a nightmare of agony. Turtle hatchlings are born only to be devoured before they touch the sea. Young antelopes are torn apart by lions that have no choice but to kill. Insects have their bodies parasitized and devoured from the inside out. Nature is not the lush paradise of documentary photos, but a machine of suffering. Life is a business that does not pay its costs. If Schopenhauer is right about anything, it is that suffering is not a system error, it is the system. Modern biology confirms this. Life is driven by the instinct to survive, and that instinct produces suffering. If creatures did not feel hunger, fear, or pain, they simply would not fight to live. If humans did not feel desire, anxiety, dissatisfaction, we would not seek food, sex, or money, and our species would vanish. Suffering is the glue that keeps life functioning. Fear of death makes us struggle to keep living. The pain of desire keeps us moving, but it comes at a cost. We are prisoners of this mechanism and unable to escape the cycle. And if nature does not care about us, what remains? What can we do in the face of that cruel indifference? In the next chapter, we will explore humanity's desperate attempt to escape the truth, and how every attempt to find meaning only plunges us deeper into despair. If everyone knew the truth, few would keep living. The world is suffering, nature is indifferent, and happiness is an illusion. But then how do we continue? How do billions of people wake up every day, go to work, fall in love, make plans, and carry on as if life had meaning? The answer is brutal: lies. Humanity survives because it deceives itself. We create comforting narratives, ideologies, religions, dreams of progress to hide the fact that we are trapped in a useless cycle of pain and frustration. Since the dawn of time, religion has been the supreme analgesic. The promise of heaven, of divine justice, of a higher purpose, gave hope to the suffering. But in Schopenhauer's view, religion is nothing but a necessary self-deception. The ordinary person must believe there's some hidden meaning in pain, that there will be a reckoning after death because facing reality would be unbearable. But the truth is this: there is no one watching us, no superior entity rewarding our good deeds, no prize waiting at the end of the path. The pain we feel has no purpose. It is simply a consequence of existence. If God existed and were just, why would there be random suffering? Why are babies born only to die in fields of war? Why does diseases destroy lives without reason? Why is human history marked by genocide, slavery, and misery? If there is a creator, he is cruel or at least indifferent. If God made this world, I would not want to be that God. The world's misery would break my heart. When religion begins to fail, modern society offers another lie: progress. We are taught that we must work, achieve, and build, that life has meaning because we can leave a legacy. But this is another trick to keep us busy. The truth is that work is only a form of distraction. We spend most of our lives chasing money and promotions. What do we get in return? A retirement to wait for death. Human progress, in turn, is not a victory over suffering, but an amplification of it. We create technologies to live longer only to spend more years struggling with disease. We increase productivity only to be more exploited. And even when we accomplish something, boredom returns, forcing us to pursue the next goal. Man's life revolves around pain as the earth revolves around the sun. And then there is the greatest of illusions: love. We are taught that love is the meaning of life, that finding the right person will bring happiness. But Schopenhauer saw love differently, as a biological trick. We love not because there is anything divine about it, but because nature programmed us to do so. Love is merely an evolutionary mechanism to ensure reproduction. We feel attraction, desire, passion, all so life can continue replicating itself. But like any other desire, love condemns us to suffering. If we are rejected, we suffer. If we win what we want, we soon grow weary. If we remain in love, we endure jealousy, fights, routine, disappointments. And even the happiest couples are eventually separated by death. Isn't it strange that what we romanticize most is also our greatest source of pain? Modern neuroscience confirms what Schopenhauer intuited. Our mind is programmed to deceive us. The human brain has specific mechanisms to ignore painful truths. When confronted with unbearable reality, the brain triggers chemical responses that distort it. That explains why we keep living even when we know the end is inevitable. Dopamine gives us false hopes, serotonin makes us accept the unacceptable, and the limbic system forces us to attach to things and people, even knowing everything is fleeting. Illusion is not a system error, it is the system. If we are not to blame and far from the truth, man can in fact do what he wants, but cannot want what he wants. And if all this is a cruel game, how do we react? How do we live knowing we are prisoners of a system of suffering and lies? In the next chapter, we will explore the final despair, the moment when the mask falls and man realizes there is no way out. There is a moment in life when everything goes silent. The noise of the world, the distractions, the empty promises, everything disappears, and for an instant the truth appears bare and unadorned. What remains is only the void. Most people avoid that moment at all costs. They stay busy, entertained, running around, drowning in social media, drugs, work, relationships, anything to avoid facing what lies behind existence's backdrop. But sooner or later, silence comes, in the solitude of a dark room, at the funeral of someone dear, or in the realization that no matter what we do, time keeps destroying everything without mercy. Man is a metaphysical animal, and when he confronts the vacuity of existence, his first reaction is despair. For some, this realization happens in childhood. Children who look at their parents and suddenly understand they will die too. Young people at the peak of vitality who sense that each passing second is a step toward the end. Adults who, after achieving everything they wanted, feel an emptiness greater than ever. When the illusion cracks, what remains is the certainty that everything is temporary, the shock of realizing nothing really matters, the anguish of knowing that no one can escape. Schopenhauer called this the awakening of the tragic spirit, the moment consciousness perceives there is no meaning, that all struggles were futile, that happiness is only an interval between sufferings. Life is like a bad play whose final act is always the same: death. If we look at history, it becomes even harder to deny this truth. The 20th century was a stage of genocides and wars, atomic bombs. Millions died believing in flags that were soon forgotten. Empires rose and fell, leaving only ruins. Even those who won were not spared. Napoleon ended exiled and sick. Caesar was stabbed by those he called allies. Kings and emperors spent their lives hoarding riches that were later inherited by strangers. Life always laughs last. Today, it is no different. People spend years studying for careers they hate, work to the point of exhaustion to buy things they will not have time to enjoy, build families that will one day vanish without a trace. Time devours everything. Life is a loan that is taken back with absurd interest. Many cannot bear this truth. When they realize existence is a dead end, they surrender to despair, depression, anxiety, suicide, all forms of response to life's absurdity. If civilization keeps us busy so we do not think about this, what happens when someone allows themselves to face the void? Cases are numerous, like brilliant writers like Ernest Hemingway and Virginia Woolf, who understood the truth and decided to leave the game. Philosophers like Kurt Gödel, who, after a lifetime of reasoning, chose to die of starvation rather than continue existing. Even ordinary people who, one day, simply see no point in getting out of bed. The void consumes consciousness, destroys it, and there is no escape. Some philosophies tried to offer answers. Nietzsche said we should create our own meaning. Camus spoke of embracing the absurd and living despite the lack of purpose. But for Schopenhauer, all of this was merely another deception. The only real exit, according to him, is to reduce our participation in the game of life as much as possible. To desire nothing, to expect nothing, to live as minimally as possible, like a monk who abandons all illusions and accepts nothingness. But who can really do that? If life is suffering and there is no escape, what does science say? In the next chapter, we will see how modern studies of mind and behavior confirm that unhappiness is not an accident. It is the human natural state. Pain is not an error, not a chance occurrence, not a system flaw. It is the system itself. Humans were designed to suffer, not by some malicious creator, not as divine punishment, but by the very logic of existence. Suffering is not a detail of life. It is what keeps life functioning. Schopenhauer, with his relentless philosophy, knew this before modern science confirmed it. Humans are slaves of their desires, condemned to eternal frustration. What he might not have known is that our own brain was shaped to keep us unhappy. Most people believe they can choose to be happy, that they can change their destiny by effort, positive thinking, or a new goal. But neuroscience dismantles this cruel illusion. The human mind is controlled by unconscious processes, and happiness was never an evolutionary priority. Your brain was not designed to make you happy, it was designed for survival. That means you will always feel fear because fear keeps you alert. You will always desire more because desire ensures you keep chasing resources. You will never be satisfied because satisfaction leads to stagnation. The concept of happiness is a biological trap. Pleasure exists only as a small, temporary reward, a trick to keep you in the race, but it soon disappears and the void returns. Dopamine, the neurotransmitter of pleasure, is not released when you achieve something, but when you are pursuing it. That is why anticipation of a desire is more pleasurable than its fulfillment. When you finally get what you want, the brain simply reduces the reward and creates a new desire. Life keeps you hungry forever. If this is already seeming cruel, it gets worse. The brain not only prevents happiness, it actively torments us. Evolutionary psychology explains that we are programmed to focus on the negative. This mechanism, known as the negativity bias, causes bad experiences to have more impact than good ones. In other words, an insult hurts more than praise comforts. A loss has more effect than an equivalent gain. The fear of failure is greater than the joy of success. This made sense in the past. Our ancestors needed to be constantly alert to danger. A mistake could mean death. But in the modern world, this mechanism became a burden. We live on edge, anxious, anguished, seeking problems where they may not exist. And there is the consciousness, that unique human curse. Whereas an animal lives in the present, we torture ourselves with the past and anguish over the future. Schopenhauer foresaw this. Man is the only animal who feels the pain twice, when it happens and when he anticipates it. But the greatest human tragedy is another. We're condemned to think. Autoconsciousness, celebrated as our greatest virtue, is also our greatest punishment. An animal feels pain and then forgets. A human relives it countless times, recounting stories, ruminating on failures, feeding fears. How do we cope? With distractions. Work, love, entertainment. Everything keeps us away from ourselves. But at the end of the day, when we are alone, the truth returns. Nothing can fill the void. If none of this were devastating enough, the worst blow is yet to come. In the end, it doesn't matter what we do, we will lose the brain that tormented us our whole lives. One day it simply starts to fail. We lose memories, abilities, identity. The machine that tormented us slowly falls apart, leaving us in absolute fragility before discarding us. Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, neurodegenerative diseases, all are proof that the mind we value so much is just a piece of meat with an expiration date. Death is not only possible, it is inevitable. In the end, it is the only certainty. If Schopenhauer was right and science confirms it, and there is no way out, what remains? The answer is brutally simple. Nothing. You can try to deceive yourself like most do, create artificial goals, pretend there is meaning, or you can accept the inevitable and simply watch the spectacle of existence without getting too involved. The truth is, life never cared what you think about it. Will you keep pretending everything is fine, or will you finally accept the absurd? The only redemption is the denial of desire. And so we end where we began. Life is shit, and then you die. Life is an illusion. Have you noticed it? The world deceived you from the start. It made you believe in empty promises, gave you false hopes, and in the end, everything comes down to the same inevitable destination. But on this channel, we do not run away from the truth. We do not hide the absurdity of existence or sell you comforting lies. If you made it this far, it's because you already sense something is wrong with the world, and we're here to explore that together. And now the question, will you continue living on autopilot, or will you deepen your view of reality? Become a member of the channel. If you feel you do not belong in this world of superficial optimism, this is your place. Support us. Show that you value truth in a world where everyone wants to distract and anesthetize you. This channel exists to remind you of what truly matters, understanding reality as it is, not as people wish it were. The question is simple. Will you keep pretending everything is fine, or join us to face the truth without fear? The decision is yours. Become a member, or keep living in the lie.